Last bit of this video series. It's really important to show that you've listened during the meeting and that you've understood the points that have been raised by the individual. This should be a discussion, although the first part of the meeting is very much you're in control. You do want the individual to put forward their ideas as part of that, what are we going to do to make the improvements section. The best way to show that you've listened and that you've understood is to routinely summarise during the meeting and check that they've agreed that you've understood correctly. So if you've talked to them about an idea, you've said your key sentence. If we take the issue of not getting into work on time, for example, you might say, I understand you're finding it difficult to get into work for the team meeting at 9. Is that right? How can we address that? You encourage them to come up with their own solutions, as we mentioned, using silence. They might say, well, I could set my alarm earlier, or I could get an earlier bus, or I could share a lift with a colleague who always gets in, half an hour earlier. Or you might agree as the manager to shift the time of the meeting slightly so that they can still drop their child at school and get in on time. Any of these ideas are potential options. So summarise, I've heard you're finding it difficult to get into work. You've come up with a few ideas, all of which are good ideas. Which one do you want to take forward? Or which one are you liking the best? Which one seems most realistic to you? Just have a bit of discussion about it. Have I understood that actually your preference is that you'd like to share a lift with a colleague? No idea is a bad idea here. This is really a bit of a brainstorming session. But if they do come up with an idea where you're thinking, I'm not sure they're going to be able to keep up with that. For example, I'm going to get a bus that's an hour earlier and you're thinking, I just can't see that happening. Don't say, that's never going to happen, is it? But perhaps ask them, how do you think that's going to work? How are you going to sustain that change? What can you put in place to make sure that this is something that you can commit to? Use the questions in the Grow Model worksheet that I mentioned before. How will you do that? How confident are you that that's going to provide a resolution? How committed are you to making that happen? Ask them what blockers might be to making that happen. What obstacles might get in the way, what might derail your efforts. What else could you put in place to make sure that that really does work? So again, we're asking lots of open questions, but we're also summarising for our understanding. Ideally, at this stage, you should see them a little bit more energised. You're talking about future focus, things they could do to get back on track, to address the problem issue that you've brought up with them. And hopefully they're feeling empowered. They're coming up with solutions that they can make things better. You might ask them how you're feeling right now, what's on your mind. Is there anything that you're concerned about? Remember how you wanted to make them feel. When we brainstorm right at the beginning, how do you want them to feel at the end of the meeting? This is your opportunity to reflect on, are they in the right place? If they're saying things like, I feel really worried, or I think, I feel a bit anxious about, am I going to be able to make these things happen? You could drill into that a little bit. What's worrying you? What is it specifically that's worrying you? What are you fearing could happen? They might be worrying, if I don't make this change, I'm going to lose my job. And this is an opportunity for you to repeat the key sentence again, to anchor that conversation back to what one thing they must change. I just need you to commit to arriving on time. You said you'll set an earlier alarm, so you know what you need to do. How sure are you that you're going to be able to do that? Get them to have some positive confirmation. You can ask them, what else can I do to support you? Probably they'll say nothing. I just need to get on and do it, and you can agree. In which case they've understood the message, so that's a positive thing. So use that summarising throughout the meeting. Okay, you've told me that. Am I understanding that correctly? What else could we do to address that point? Or, how else can you make that idea or that solution really sustainable? Okay?